We are going to be continuing our conversation about AI today, and I'm thrilled to introduce our next session. Wayfair has always been ahead of the curve when it comes to technology and AI, and Fiona Tan has a deep technology background, having previously led technology at companies like Walmart and SAP before joining Wayfair. She's going to share how Wayfair leverages AI to enhance the shopper experience, and it's with great pleasure that I introduce Fiona Tan, CTO of Wayfair, and she's being interviewed by Gabrielle Fonrouge, retail reporter at CNBC. Please help me in giving them a warm welcome to the Commerce Next stage.
It is such a pleasure to be here with you all. Gabrielle Fonrouge, I cover the retail industry for CNBC. I'm here with Fiona Tan. I'm so excited to speak with you. Crushing the customer experience with AI, and obviously Wayfair has been on the forefront of so much of that as a digitally native brand. And it's not a new brand, it's been around for a long time. So I know there's a lot that you're doing with AI, so I kind of want to, the customer experience is vast, there's many steps along the journey, as all of you know. So why don't we start with product discovery? How are you integrating AI into product discovery for the customer?
Yeah, thanks, Gabrielle. Hi, everyone. Really lovely to be here. Yes, certainly, I think product discovery, especially for Wayfair, if you think about the home category, it's more complicated, right? A lot of times you're trying to discover or trying to buy something and you have trouble describing it. And you may not know exactly what it looks like, you may not know how to describe it, you may not know it till you see it. So, we've been using AI, the more traditional predictive AI, for quite some time. But I think the generative AI, the large language models have really been a game changer where in terms of understanding products and also displaying that to our customers. So when I think about the customer experience and how we're leveraging Gen AI, we've been talking about it as like a little bit of an AI flywheel. So the first part of that is like, how do I inspire my customers, right? And there are a lot of new capabilities that allow me to do that. So, for example, I hope there's some Wayfair customers out there, but we just recently launched a Discover tab on our app. And what that is that it's the generative image part of it. And so it's going to show you imagery, and it'll be a fairly endless amount of imagery that shows you rooms that are very, different kinds of rooms and different styles, and you can interact with it to sort of help you codify what it is you're looking for. And once you have that, it's not just an endless gallery, right? It allows you then to shop that specific look, right? So it's another way of discovering products besides the usual search bar and or filters, right? So this is now a new way of doing that. So I think what we're hoping for is that customers will use these new capabilities that are generated imagery, et cetera, to be inspired. And then the next part is that hopefully once they're inspired, they'll engage with us more. And again, the generative AI tools allow us to do a lot more different things, like visual search, a smarter search, AI shopping assistance. I think you're seeing working on doing that as well, so that instead of just looking through like scores of product details, you can now ask questions about the products, right? And so in this case, what we're hoping for is that our customers will engage with us more, and that all feeds into our learning stage, right? Because that's what you want. You want the data, the click stream, et cetera, to be able to really drive our models with that, and then finally to be able to personalize, right? And again, the large language models and the generative capabilities allow us to do that so much better than we ever have before, right? The old way we used to talk about personalization is like, you put customers into segments, there are 6 segments, and then you kind of talk to them in 6 different ways. And now you can really, leverage the capabilities to talk to customers on a one-on-one basis, right? And it's all powered, and so that's why I say it's a flywheel, right? Because you've inspired them, they're engaging more, you're getting more data, you're learning from it, and then you can personalize in a also very much different way because of the generative capabilities, right? Both from again, whether it's the text or generating images to show them again, it's really game changing. It's kind of how I think about it.
So how new is this?
Different parts of it. I mean, the Discover tab we just launched. We had a beta. Some of you may have seen it for a few months already. We just launched it widely to everyone. I want to say like last week or something like that.
Okay.
And that's based on technology that we had been leveraging in our Decorify and our Muse sort of sites that were sort of outside of the core commerce journey. And so we've been doing that too, right? We've been kind of using the capabilities pretty much at the bleeding edge. And when we first launched Decorify, it would show you these generated images, which are still, at that time, very revolutionary. But you'd see, like the table, the leg was
Looked like
askew.
it was floating a little bit.
Maybe it's floating a little bit. But we also found that our customers were actually quite accepting of it, and they knew it is obviously a hallucination, but it still helped them be able to sort of imagine the look that they were looking for. And so they were able to excuse that. But whatever, a year and a half, 2 years later, it's so much better. And so we've been, the capabilities from Decorify and then the capabilities from Muse, same thing, right? Just the generating images in different styles that you can interact with. You can kind of hone in on different, you can say, I like this one, but replace this couch with something else. So we took those capabilities and then we baked it now into the main commerce journey, right? So that's really exciting. And I think, that's not the end, right? I mean, voice is coming along so fast, right? In the generative AI world, video, right? So I imagine that the shopping experience will be vastly different than what used to be. And so but we're on a journey. Right? Customers will take a little while to adapt. So we'll be curious to see how quickly customers adapt their shopping experience, but we believe that it's going to keep evolving.
So are you seeing any early reads from the customer? Because, product discovery, especially when you're in e-commerce, you've got sometimes millions of SKUs, right?
Yes, we do.
And I know when I'm shopping, so I'm ready to spend money, I'm there to shop, and I just get exhausted. I'm like, there's too many options, it's the paradox of choice. So what are you seeing from the consumer now that you've launched this? What did you see in beta, and what are you seeing it now more widely?
Yeah, so certainly, now that we have it more broadly available, and I would love for you all to try it out, please give us feedback. We're finding that people who are our customers that are engaging with the Discover tab are certainly converting more, and they're getting to the PDP faster, and they actually find the products that they want faster. But it's still, it's still a smaller percentage, right, of our customer base. And so, again, that's why I say I think sometimes the customer behavior will take a little bit of time to evolve and get there. But we're finding that for the customers that do lean in and engage, it is actually really promising.
So one of the things that it's been talked a lot about at this conference is how do you integrate AI without losing that human touch, right? Consumers are always complaining about trying to get an agent on the phone or a chatbot that it's not actually smart, it just has the pre-programmed. So how are you instilling AI while also making sure that the Wayfair customer still feels like there's a human on the other end? Yeah,
absolutely. And I think at Wayfair we've always prided ourselves in really good customer service. And if you wanted to talk to a customer service agent, we want to make sure that you have someone that you can talk to. And so what we've been doing is more the human in the loop. We're augmenting our customer service agents with with a lot of the AI sort of powered responses that they can kind of look through and be able to kind of help collate all the data in a much more timely manner so that they can respond better to customers. And a lot of it's around them being able to handle more customer service calls so that you don't have to wait as long to be able to talk to someone. But then on the flip side, we're also looking at, also working on, essentially chatbots that are a lot more intelligent so that in the case where you do not, we're going to meet customers where they're at. Some customers want to call and talk to someone, some don't, right? And so for those customers, we also want to make sure that they have a better experience beyond the old style chatbots where like you picked one of five, and it was never one of the five.
It's like something else, agent, please.
Yeah, something else, agent, exactly. And so now I think we also have, we've also built smarter, again, built on top of generative AI, but smarter bots that can help you actually do more. So you have that choice. But I think another really good example of how we're integrating the human and AI is actually our Wayfair Verified program. So we launched that earlier this year. I think we announced it maybe at Shop Talk earlier this year as well. But basically what it is you mentioned, we have tens of millions of SKUs. And so that's a lot to go through. We have the Wayfair Verified program essentially has our product specialists, our category managers, our merchants, going out and for each category defining what are the most important aspects, for whether it's a accent chair or a dining chair, et cetera. And so they actually look for the products that meet those high criteria, and it's not all at the same price point. It could be different price points, and it could be different styles. In fact, it is. It's different price points at different styles. They find the best items for that price point, style, et cetera. And we actually bring them in, we audit it, we sit on it, we install it, we put it together, et cetera. And so then they then record a video that talks about why they love it. And so we found that that human curation, human touch is still really important. You feel like someone's done that work for you. But all of that underneath the covers, we're powering with Gen AI in terms of like AI and Gen AI in terms of helping scale this out. Because otherwise, I want to still be able to give you tens of thousands of Wayfair verified products. If I did it sort of the old school way, it would just take too long.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you have AI under the covers powering this really amazing human experience. And hopefully for our customers, you go to our site and you say, I'm going to look for a Wayfair verified product. You know that it's the best value. It's the ones that we've vetted, we've sat on it, we've poked at it, we've played around with it, we've installed it, and we'll tell you, hey, it took 2 hours and 30 minutes to install, right? And it requires these many tools. So that's I think a nice kind of, in my mind, I like that nice combination of AI and humans.
Yeah, and especially with the marketplace model, that's so incredibly important in building
Exactly.
trust, right? Like you're shopping on a marketplace, you think you're buying from the brand, but it's not exactly, and then you get it and it's not what you think it is, and they're like, contact the manufacturer, and it's a bit of a nightmare. So, one of the things that when we talked, when I interview CEOs and executives such as yourself about the ways that they're using AI, when we first started having these conversations, it felt like, people were shy about it, right? They were still figuring it out, or maybe the things that they were doing weren't going to, break the industry, but they were effective in improving margin, improving operations, all that kind of boring stuff on the back end, which I actually think is fascinating as a finance reporter. So how are you integrating AI into the back end when it comes to operations so you can free up your staff to work more with the customer and to improve ultimately the customer experience?
Yeah, no, for sure. In fact, I would say that we went faster with operations because in almost all of those cases, there are humans in the loop, right? So if you think about for our technologists, right, putting coding assistants out there, and they've gotten so much better. But at the end of the day, there is a developer, and I keep reminding them that it's great. I'm glad that you're using the coding assistants to help generate code, but you're still on the hook for the code that you're going to put in production, right? So you automatically have a human in the loop there, right? So certainly the coding assistants have helped us a lot across the full software development lifecycle. About products, and so sort of things that are sort of one step to your point, like under the covers that powers the customer experience. We've been able to leverage and actually go faster in terms of our ability to leverage AI, and so I would say yes. So certainly the catalog understanding, being able to help. In our case, it's a little bit different. As you all probably know, we're a first-party retailer, so we show up that way for you. But under the covers, we've got tens of thousands of suppliers, right? And with millions of products. So how do I make sure that when we get information from our suppliers that we're able to augment and to enrich and to provide a really robust product description to you, right? And again, it's very varied because you've got tens of thousands of suppliers. And so a lot of AI there to help kind of get that sort of quality of, and you want to make sure that it's actually representative. You don't want to make something sound better than it is either, right? So how do you make sure that you're vetting it all in different, across different vectors? And that's where we've really leveraged and kind of doubled down on AI. And the multimodality, right? So the image, kind of cross-referencing the image that the supplier gives you with the text that they give you, and with sort of the understanding of how big, generally speaking, is a couch supposed to be, right? And so being able to kind of cross-reference all of that to ensure that the data is accurate and sort of representative of the product. And we've been able to do a lot of that work and really sort of accelerate a lot of that with AI.
Mm-hmm. So obviously, Wayfair is a digitally native retailer. It's been about 25 years or so now?
20 plus, yeah.
20 plus years, which is always, mind-boggling to me. But, as a digitally native company, right, you're on the forefront of tech. That's always been a priority for Wayfair. But tell us a little bit about this journey, about how you got to this point, right? Like OpenAI deploys ChatGPT. I mean, what's going on inside your organization? How did you start integrating it? And what kind of culture did you need to create to be able to make that happen?
Yeah, so I think certainly as a digitally native company, the company's always been very data-driven and very innovative, right? So I think that part is very core to the DNA. But I also do think that this is such a, revolutionary change. And it's not, I think before when there were technology advances, you could say, hey, looks fairly constrained to the tech team. How well is the tech team able to take advantage of SaaS or cloud or et cetera? And it was somewhat self-contained, I would say. I think the generative AI is so different now because it does need to, obviously the technology team and the scientists and all that, we need to be using, plethora of models, trying to figure out what's the best and making sure that we're applying it to get the best result for our customers. But then also the rest of the corporate staff, right, needs to also be leveraging AI. And so that's one of the things that's different about this kind of tech change is it's not just targeted to the technologists. I think it needs to be more broad. And so the change management around that has been certainly a journey. But precisely, what we're doing is we're trying to make sure everyone in the company has the tools, right? So it's like you have Gemini, you have ChatGPT, and then what we found is that it wasn't just good enough to just give them the tools. We had to also show them how to use it, right? So we have what we're calling the Supercharge program, but basically it's like cross-company, it's like a cross-company sport almost, right? It's like hackathons, and it's not just the tech team. It's the marketing team and the commercial organization. It's the supply chain team. It's the field staff, kind of collaborating and coming up with sort of hackathons that showcase how they're using Gen AI in their sort of in their day-to-day, right? So we're doing sort of making sure that there's engagement and I think that's going to be really important. And a lot of it's also then how do we help ensure that so a category manager or a supply relationship manager and the workflows that they have, how do I help them look at how Gen AI could help them, right? So in some cases it could be simple as prompts, right? In other cases, it may be, now with a lot of the agentic frameworks, maybe it's, a no-code agent that can help them with some of the tasks. And in some other cases, it may be a little bit more complex that I have to build something for them. Mm-hmm. And so it's both, right? It's like some grassroots, some personal productivity for everyone, and then there's also how are these workflows going to be disrupted by the capabilities that exist today. So you kind of have to attack it, I would say, like all three ways.
Mm-hmm. So there's so many new platforms now that retailers are integrating into their workflows, into their operations. I think a lot of them are actually here at this conference. Mm-hmm. How do you think about integrating a new platform? What do you look for, and how do you measure that success?
Yeah, so I think certainly, in a way, I'm thrilled because we're spoiled for choice, right? We have a lot of partners that we can work with. So I think certainly from a model perspective, you start at that level. We want to make sure, at least what we've done is make sure that we are agnostic, right? So we want to make sure that we're using the best models out there. I don't want to be too precious about getting stuck with one versus the other, knowing that there's a constant race around who's going to be better, and I'm thrilled about it because I feel like we all get to leverage that, right? So making sure that you have a framework that allows you to do that has been super important. And then also, there are many of them here, sort of AI-first companies or startups and capabilities that have come to bear that I think it's also important for us to be able to leverage. And so for me, with my team, I'm talking to them about how does that help me accelerate where I need to go in terms of solving the problems for my customers. And I think for those, what I look for is generally companies that are willing to work with us as a partner, because we're used to building. In the past, we've built everything ourselves, and now it's a little bit of a shift to work with partners. So we want to make sure that there is that partnership where you're going to come in, we're going to solve these problems together. We're going to probably push them a little bit, and they can push us a little bit too. So we're looking for companies that are willing to do that with us, and then also solutions that meet me where I'm at, right? Like I want to be able to bring in solutions that are not going to require me to throw everything out and use your solution, right? So, and I think that's where a lot of companies are going now, is that they're much more integratable. It's a lot easier to sort of put it in, be able to test, show results, and if it works, great. It's already there. If it doesn't work, you pull it out. It's no big deal. And I think that's what I think most companies are going to be looking for. It's kind of a lower lift, right, in terms of being able to demonstrate your capabilities.
Mm-hmm. Somehow we are almost out of time. So let's show our key points, if we can get those on the board. Some takeaways for everybody in the room. Take out your phones, make sure you get a picture of them. So stay flexible and focus on ROI, right? I think that's what we were just discussing. You don't want to get too precious about any one product. You eat what you kill, the best one wins, right? So yes, measure value rigorously to ensure strongest return on capital. In this environment, everybody, we need to be very careful about that. Integrate and scale. Don't just replace old models. Ensure AI can be scalable and integrated into ongoing workflows.
Can I say one thing
about that? Yeah, we didn't talk too much about that.
Yeah, I think one of the things to really think about too is that when we looked at, and we actually this happened to us, so just sort of a gotcha. But basically, if you look at one of your traditional workflows and you say, hey, look, I'm going to replace this one, I'm going to supercharge it with AI, et cetera, sometimes what happens is you just move the bottleneck somewhere else, right? So sometimes you need to rethink the entire workflow. And then I think now with are that you want to have it get to versus telling it to follow a process which was designed for humans, right? So I think that's the part that is fairly new. I mean, honestly, I really couldn't think about doing that last year. I think it's more of a this year thing, but something I would, that's kind of what I would point out.
Yeah, absolutely. And talent and adoption, invest in training on an ongoing basis. I love this idea of hackathons. And the retail industry is often criticized for being a little bit behind on technology. So I think people can actually learn a lot from what you're doing at Wayfair. So you can get that talent in the room and nurture it, right? You have to water that talent. Build the expectation of change into your team culture. Fiona Tan, Chief Technology Officer of Wayfair, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for coming to listen.